Yo, what's going on? I'm the Anime Top Scholar, and today I thought we would try something a little different. I had an idea where I go back and revisit some anime series that I watched as a young Top Scholar in the making, and see if those shows really is as good as kid me thought it was. There's no way that my kid self couldn't distinguish between a quality show and something horrible. Right? Well, that's what we're here to find out. Before we get into it, I'm just gonna take this opportunity to remind you that for this series, spoilers are on the table. I'm not gonna go out of my way to spoil it, but I also won't limit myself to only talking about the basic premise and non-specific events. So do keep that in mind if you care about being spoiled on a 20-year-old anime aimed at kids. Anyways, without any further ado, let's just get to it. So if you remember a little while ago, I said something like this in my video, a brief look at the history of isekai. Digimon is the best isekai, don't even at me. As you can probably tell from that, I'm a big fan of the Digimon Adventure anime. Or rather, I was as a kid. It really stood out to me among all the other cartoons I watched at the time, and because of that, it's taken a place in my mind as one of the greatest children/young teen anime of all time. Hell, my nostalgia for it is so hard that I would probably even claim it better than a lot of anime aimed at a more mature audience, and definitely way better than the Pokemon anime ever was. But now it's time to take the rose-tinted glasses off, and see if it really is as good as my memory has hyped it up to be. So for those that don't know, Digimon Adventures, or Digimon Digital Monsters in English, is a 54-episode TV series produced by Studio Toei Animations and directed by Hiroyuki Kakudo, with people like Mamoru Hosoda serving as episode director. Digimon Adventure also has a prequel movie, sequel series, and a bunch of spin-offs in the forms of anime, manhwa, and games. The series follows Tai, Matt, TK, Soda, Mimi, Joe, and Issy, a group of children who head out for summer camp, expecting to have a good time. But instead, they are given a strange device and transported to a different world. This world is known as the Digital World. Now Tai and the gang have to find a way to return home. But before they can do that, they need to survive. For the Digital World seems pretty hostile. Thankfully for them, they get their own digital monsters that will help them become stronger, and hopefully find a way to return back home. Okay, so when I decided to rewatch this show, I decided that I wanted to try watching it in Japanese this time, because I didn't know that this was an anime made in Japan as a kid, and because I'm now a filthy weeb. It took a little bit of getting used to, especially since the names of the characters changed. Tai is actually called Taichi, Matt's named Yamato, TK is Takeru, and so on and so forth. At least Sora and Mimi kept their names. Kinda makes you wonder why they would change the names of the guys in the show, but not the girls. But I digress. Thinking back on the story of this anime, I remember it being darker than your typical adventure anime like Pokemon. This definitely still holds true, as Digimon is not about a fun adventure that these kids chose to go on, but instead a conflict that they were thrown into against their will, with even the danger of them not surviving being there. Not quite as prevalent as I remembered it, but obviously it's an anime aimed at kids. If they made it too dark, it would just scare kids away. So this is still in line with what I remembered. That said, there was one thing that I was really looking forward to seeing again, as it made quite the impression on me as a kid. That was when Tai and Metal Greymon got sent back into the real world in their fight against Etemon. We get to spend some time with Tai back in Tokyo, being all alone with his Digimon, and his sister Kari, who for some reason knows about these digital monsters. As a kid, I remember getting a lonely and empty feeling from this, probably because their parents aren't home, and how alien a lot of things feel. We also start to see other Digimon begin to appear in the real world, showing us how the real world and the digital world is starting to converge. This is where I remember that the show properly sold me on this story, and it's also where Tai realizes he has to go back and help his friends who are still trapped in the digital world. Now, rewatching this part as an adult was a little bit disappointing. It's definitely true that this is where Tai realizes there's something going on in the digital world, and that he has to return to help his friends stop whatever is happening. But it is not quite as expertly handled as I remembered. For example, when Tai returns to Tokyo, we do get this strange, almost alien feeling, and I can understand that as Tai would obviously be very confused, since he's all of a sudden back home, and not to mention that his Digimon has devolved and joined him in the real world. But there's still a lot of questions like, if Tai and Koromon got sent back to the real world, wouldn't Etemon also end up there, since he also got sucked in? Or the obvious question of why Kari seems to know so much about Digimon? Though that makes more sense after watching the prequel movie that I only learned existed after having rewatched the series. But anyways, the point is that these episodes didn't quite live up to the hype that I had built up in my mind based on how I remembered it. Another part that I always thought was pretty neat was when all the Digidestined kids returned from the digital world. Seeing the switch, where it's the Digimon who have to get used to our world, was always something I enjoyed watching, and my opinion on that didn't change. But from here on out, the plot is thickened, cause now the Digidestined have to try their best to keep both their world as well as the digital world from intertwining. The stakes are now higher than ever, and to the kid me, this was very cool. Now on the other hand, adult me feel like they lost a lot of the more grounded tension they had going for them in the first half of the series. Don't get me wrong, these final 2 arcs aren't bad, and raising the stakes isn't really a bad move to take, but it does make Digimon feel a bit more like your standard action-adventure anime. The introduction of the Dark Masters proves to be the greatest challenge the Digidestined has ever faced, which really starts to sow the seeds of doubt in your mind about whether this is simply too difficult a task for a group of kids to overcome. But it also proves that the standard principles of power of friendship and how together they can overcome everything. Now, this is just my jaded adult view on this, but the power of friendship thing is something that I've definitely grown tired of when I got older. Don't get me wrong, it's not like this power of friendship thing just shows up at the end of the show, but it becomes more of a crutch and a reliability, cause you always know that they can count on each other, and that they will defeat the evil in the end. Good defeats bad in kids anime? No way! Now, let's talk a bit about the art and animation in this show. Thinking back, I remember that I thought Digimon Adventure looked really good as a kid, and that the animation was superb. The way the sea in particular was animated was so fantastic that I even got slightly seasick from watching it. Well, let's take a look at this amazing water animation. Well, I can definitely understand why I got seasick from watching that, though it would probably be more accurate to say I got motion sick rather than seasick. The nostalgia glasses are definitely on full force when it comes to the visuals in this show, cause the Digimon in my mind and the Digimon that plays out on the screen before me don't even look like the same show. I would have been very disappointed by that if it weren't for the fact that I've seen enough clips and screenshots from this show even years after watching it the first time, so I pretty much had an idea of what I was getting into in terms of visuals. When it comes to the music in this show, I don't really have much to say. I don't really remember what I thought of any of the music in this show as a kid, other than the god-awful Norwegian version of the American Digimon opening. But the reason I still wanted to bring up music is just so that I could have an excuse to gush about the Japanese opening to the show, cause holy hell is the song Butterfly by Koji Wada a banger and a half. Sadly, I can't show it due to copyright reasons, but I implore you to go and give it a listen on your own. Now, for as good as that song is, there is one issue I have with it, and that is that it's also used during the evolution sequence for the Digimon. There's 2 reasons why this is a problem. One is that it just doesn't fit in my opinion. The second reason is that we get treated to this evolution sequence so many times, especially in the opening episodes, that you get really sick of both the song and the reused animation. In that regard, and I hate myself for even saying it, I prefer the dubbed Digimon opening that plays during the transformation sequence, cause at least that fits better in my opinion. So in conclusion, is this anime as perfect as I remember it being as a kid? No, not at all. However, is it a lot better than I thought it would be? Yes. Going back and watching other shows I enjoyed as a kid like Pokemon was really a huge letdown for me, when I realized that it was nowhere near as good as I remembered it. But Digimon was different. Sure, it's not a 10 out of 10, but it's still a pretty solid show. When the biggest complaint I can think of is that it's not for me anymore, that's really not much of a complaint at all, considering that now that I'm an adult, I'm not the target audience for this show. Sure, you can say that there's still some lingering nostalgia that makes me enjoy the show even a little bit more than what it might deserve, or that I'm biased towards Digimon, as it was my favorite anime as a kid, and you'd be correct. But even still, all I can do is give you my thoughts and opinions. And as far as I'm concerned, Digimon Adventure is still a solid show even all these years later. Just a shame it doesn't look as good as I remembered. So those were my thoughts on Digimon Adventure. I know there's a second season as well, but for the sake of this video, I only really wanted to talk about the first season, since that's the only season I watched in full as a kid. That said, if you would want me to, I can also do another one on the second season of Digimon Adventure. Also, let me know if you enjoyed this type of video, because if you did, I do want to make more of these in the future, but it kinda depends on the reception. Anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more anime-related content from the anime top scholar himself. Peace.